Attention maggots, this is Sergeant Slaughter from WWE and G.I. Joe, the real American hero. You're listening to Mega Power Radio. Don't touch that dial. And that's an order.
Hey, Dacetonians. This is Mike Payton filling in for Chris Dace here on episode 69 of the Dace Man Show, live on MegaPowersRadio.com. Sure, you're all wondering where Mr. Dace is. We'll get to that just in a minute. Let me introduce all the fine people we have this evening. We're going to have an awesome show. We have special guest Sarantos, musician taking the internet over by storm, has a new album coming up soon. We're going to be talking to him about his experiences and the work that went into that and where you can find it. But first, let's introduce the panelists that are going to be accompanying me throughout this evening. First off, good friend of the station, often appears on the Monday Night Raw post show Mondays here on the Raw on Mega Powers Radio. I'm going to be backing me up tonight, Mr. Drew White. How you doing, Drew?
I am doing fantastic, Mr. Payton. How are you?
I'm doing absolutely tremendous, as always, man. And also with us, a newcomer to the Dace Man Show. I'm pretty sure he's never been here, although he is very close to the Miss Nikki Mills, who has been on here a number of times. It is Sam Lassio, a member of FanboysAnonymous.com. Sam, how you doing?
I'm doing great, and I'm glad my first episode of the Dace Man Show is episode 69. It makes me giggle a little.
Oh, you immature boy. So this also is a significant episode of the Dace Man Show because this is our first one we're doing after New York Comic Con, and it's a shame that the Dace Man himself cannot be here. The reason I would say he's not here, he's still at Comic Con. He's trying to find the Bob's Burgers panel because let me tell you, if you tried to find that anything and try to ask the staff where anything was, you were not going to get any help at all. You trying to find that panel, it took us at least an hour just to get to the place we were supposed to be. But my gosh, New York Comic Con, an amazing experience. 150,000 people attended it this year. All types of amazing cosplays, celebrities. Me and Mr. Dace both got a picture with Kevin Smith, which was just like a dream come true. Who would have thought that would ever happen? I also got a picture with Mick Foley, a.k.a. Mankind. Just an amazing once-in-a-lifetime experience. We're already making plans to go out there again, possibly even attending other cons. Drew, unfortunately, you were trying to make plans to get there, but you couldn't make it. But Sam, you were there with us. What did you think about it?
Oh, I thought it was great. I got a picture with a guy because I look like a buddy of his, apparently. So I wasn't able to get pictures with any of the celebrities that were there, but just the experience of being there is just overwhelming. There's just so many people, so many great cosplays. It was definitely an experience, and I look forward to it when we go back again.
No, we're going to be doing our full rundown of that later, plus we're going to be having a full roundtable recap coming soon to fanboysanonymous.com, so stay tuned for that. But let's go ahead and bring on our guest for this evening. His name is Sarantos. He is a musician who has had very high rankings on almost every single website that you can find on for music. I believe it's Pure Volume. You've reached #1 on the United States charts. Let's get him on here. I believe we have him live. Sarantos, you here with us, man?
Yeah, how are you guys?
Absolutely tremendous. How are you, more importantly?
I'm good, man. I really appreciate you guys having me, and I want to say thank you.
Oh, listen, the Dace Man, I don't know if we'd be able to get us into it, but I am a former musician myself. I'm a bass player of about a dozen years. I can't say I quite had the same fame as you, but I've been on that stage. I've been through the music writing process. It's actually exciting for me to be able to talk to a musician on here. So, I mean, let's dig into things. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, what exactly you would define yourself as a musician with?
Absolutely. The one thing I have to say before I talk about myself too much is I was listening to your intro, and I'm an avid comic book collector, and I've been to some Comic Cons in the Chicago area, so it was cool to hear about what you guys were talking about.
Oh, that's fantastic. We're actually considering going out to Chicago for the next con, so if you're going to be there, perhaps we'll cross paths, because we got the bug. Now we're all about conventions now.
Yeah, absolutely. So anyway, to answer your question, I, again, thank you guys for having me on. I guess probably the simplest way I explain myself to people is if you got in a time machine and you came back from the 80s and you were here for about 6 months or so and you kind of listened to modern pop and soft rock music, I think I'm kind of the end result of that. So I'm kind of a mixture of 80s rock with today's modern soft rock and pop music, and that's probably the best way I can explain my music.
Now, you sent me a couple tracks here, and I listened to them. They're both very different tracks. One of them is, like you said, very 80s, new wave-ish. In fact, I showed it to a buddy of mine, and he said, oh, this sounds like Der Commissar. This is awesome. And then like the other one, it's a little bit more of a, I don't want to say folky, but a little more guitarsy. So what's your background that led you up to that? Like, you said you performed in other bands before this. You actually have never performed live with this specific project. What have you gone out there performed that has led you up to creating this solo project?
I started writing lyrics, and that's probably my biggest passion, the thing that defines me the most. For as young as I can remember, but from 4th grade on, they actually started making sense. And this kind of evolved to the point where basically about 3-4 years ago, my father passed away, and I just decided, you know what, I've really wanted to do this forever, and I just decided to do it. So I started in January of this year, and I'm a solo music artist. I did perform at the Toronto Music Festival, which was great, but probably one of the biggest challenges for me is I'm not a musician per se, so I kind of create everything in Logic, which is a computer program that Apple has released. You know, I create the guitar, the keyboard, the drums, and then I write all my lyrics, and then I put everything together. And as the very last step, I hire professional guys that are really talented to lay live guitar and live drums to the song that I've put together. So to clarify, I don't consider myself a talented musician. I can screw around on a synthesizer, which, you know, I can pretend I say that I play every instrument, but I really don't. And that's kind of what I'm doing.
That's fantastic. That you've been able to find a niche and get yourself making music even without being someone who's more instrument-based, because I am someone who sat there and I just drilled and drilled for hours, but let me tell you, when it comes to writing a very catchy riff, that's not my forte. I would have been the guy who'd been bringing in afterwards at that point after. So how long have you been singing?
I've been actively singing since I was a kid. You know, my parents always encouraged singing, dancing, and even though they weren't musically specialized, and they always encouraged it. So I always tried to sing, and you know, recently, the last maybe 3-4 years, I have really tried to hone my craft. I haven't technically taken lessons, but I've been doing all sorts of courses and just anything I get my hands on, practicing like crazy. So that's kind of what I'm doing.
So being a solo musician, are you complete 100% solo in the writing process as well, or do you ever collaborate people, or what do you do when you find yourself in like a writer's block situation? Do you have people to bounce your ideas off of? What do you do to keep yourself creatively charged?
I really don't. When I digitized all the songs I had written over the years, I stopped counting after 2000. So I know I have over 2,000 songs. And I definitely feel like the last 3 years, 4 years, when I decided, you know what, I'm really going to do this, I do feel that I have gotten much better at lyric writing and even melody creation and all that kind of stuff. But I do have a producer I've used for a few of the tracks. I do have someone who's helped me with some mixing, and I bounce some ideas off them. But really, I don't have anyone that I can say that I just kind of turn to and say, hey, I'm kind of stuck here. What do you think of this? So it's basically mostly just me bouncing ideas off myself and from experience just listening to all sorts of music and all sorts of... And I certainly experiment. You know, on this first CD, even though my genre, I think, is mostly pop, soft rock, I released a country song, a rap song. I released a jazz song as the next one coming out. So I certainly tried not to limit myself. And, you know, being an indie artist, I don't have a label telling me what to do. I can expand my reach a little bit.
And it's a wonderful age we live in now. I mean, here we are on a completely independent internet radio station, Mega Powers Radio, and that's for everybody now these days. If you're a comic book artist, if you're a musician, if you're a person who just wants to make vlogs, like, it's so easy to be an independent artist and find your audience, and that's something you've really done. Reading through your bio here, it says you have 950,000 Twitter followers, 310 Facebook likes, rated number 1 on Reverb Nation in the Chicago area, number 1 in the United States, and number 2 in the world in the pop genre. That's some fantastic figures, man. I mean, explain your success in finding your market with that.
The only way I can explain it is just hard work and grinding. I think everybody kind of loves the story of being discovered and that 1 in a million shot of some important person heard my music or saw my YouTube video, but I kind of always try to be very realistic. I look at it as, when I look at my music and what I'm trying to do, I'm really just trying to get my music out into the world. The second thing I'm really trying to do is raise money for charity, and to me, I'm not doing it for the money or the fame. I'm doing it just because I love doing it, and I am going to release a new song every month until the day I die, because to me it's easy to do and I just love doing it. Again, if something happens along the way, if I keep gaining followers, my email list keeps expanding, that's great. But I'm really not doing it for the money. I'm just doing it because I just want to get my music out there. And in fact, one of the things that I'm going to start next week, which I guess I'll give you guys the inside track, is on my website you're going to be able to download the songs for free. And there'll be a share button. You can share them. You can email the MP3 to your friend, to your group of friends. You can post it on your Facebook, Twitter, because I'd rather my music's heard. I'd rather it's heard by a million people than for me to worry about selling a couple thousand downloads. And that's kind of my attitude, is I just want to get it out there.
Now, let me just make sure that this isn't just going to automatically appear on every single person with an iPhone's iTunes.
Well, it is being sold in iTunes and Amazon and everywhere, but if you, for example, go to a track you like and you share it with your Facebook, the MP3 will be on your Facebook and all your friends can download it. Yeah,
I think you missed my reference with the U2 recently releasing that album online and it went on everybody's iPhones. There's this big rush. I didn't even want this U2 album. But that's fantastic.
I gotcha. I totally missed your reference. Yeah, I agree with you. I think U2 has some great songs, but I was kind of annoyed at that too.
They're still on my iPod. I can't get them off.
I still haven't listened to it. I want to at least give it a chance. I mean, it's a free album. I'm not going to be that ungrateful. But going back to what you're saying about the charity, that's a fantastic thing you do. 33% of any of your sales go straight to charity. And in fact, I'm guessing this is an 11-track CD. You have 11 specific charities chosen specifically for each song. Each song represents a charity. Is there a connection that you specifically chose that charity for it, or did you just choose your 11 favorite charities and just align them with the album?
No, there's a very specific reason I chose them. So, for example, when I was creating the lyrics and the melodies and I finalized the song, the first song I released was Not Where I Want to Be. And I re-looked at the lyrics and I said, okay, I understand why I wrote this. I understand the point of the song and the video. But when I looked at it, I said, what charity means a lot to me and what charity would I like to dedicate this song to? As I said, my father passed away a few years ago from lung cancer, so I picked the American Cancer Society. And when I looked at the song, there's just a natural secondary meaning there. Cancer is not where anybody wants to be. So that's why I chose that charity. And each song, there's reasoning to why I chose each charity. And I certainly, if you guys have charities you recommend or fans, they're always sending me messages. And I would love to, again, if I keep doing this, I'd love to hit every charity and try to raise money for all of them. But I try to make it very personal, and I try to make it have something to do with the song or the lyrics where people can kind of relate to it better.
I'm going to pass it off to my buddy Drew here for a second. He said he's got a question he wants to ask. I don't want to hog the whole thing here. So, Drew, please.
Oh, that's fine. You're the host, so hey, it's like that. So my question to you would be, you mentioned earlier that you pretty much stated that you're like 80s, but if you were to bring it back into like the present day, kind of like that kind of music, if you could compare it to someone so people out there can like have an idea of what it sounds like, who could you compare it to artist-wise?
That's a really difficult question because it's been so diverse. So each song that's released, on Reverb Nation, I'll pay for crowd reviews and I'll try to get all the input from all the musicians. The bands that most people think I sound like range from the Beatles to Green Day to, but it really varies on the song because, like I said, one song is pop. It's a pop summer song. The other one's like a harsh rock song. The other one's a soft rock song. So I can't tell you there's one band, but I am influenced by everybody. My favorite 80s bands were Survivor, Def Leppard, Michael Jackson. But even nowadays, I love Justin Timberlake, Katy Perry, Taylor Swift. I mean, I listen to everybody, and I really have tried not to pigeonhole myself to say, hey, I want to sound like Bruno Mars. I don't really think of my music like that. I just think of it as, again, if I'm at the gym or I get inspired by many different things, and I can just write a song about, one of the songs from the next CD is called Surgery. It's about someone going through surgery. There's all sorts of different inspirations I can come up with, and I really want, the bottom line is I don't want fans to get bored of me. So the music varies, the vocal style that I sing in varies because we all have favorite artists, and you're like, oh, here's another song by whatever band, and they all sound the same after a while. I don't want people to get tired of me.
Okay. So is there like a specific genre per se that is more difficult to make as a song around? Because you like you said, a lot of your songs sound different. Is there one particular genre that's more difficult to produce and write a song about?
Next year's CD, I think, is going to be more where I kind of fit in that soft rock pop range. I think for this year's, I thought the hip-hop rap song that I did, because I'm a writer and, you know, you're always getting your lyrics cut short and trying to put them into shorter phrases, I thought the lyrics were great for that. I thought that was really well done. That probably got rated the worst out of all the songs this year. So I was like, wow, you know, where did that come from? And I was like, maybe I should never do another rap song. Again, if you're asking me, like, what would I probably not really touch that much anymore, it's probably rap hip-hop. If you're asking what was the most challenging to make, I think the next song is a jazz song. And that was probably the most challenging for me musically because there's a lot of jazz people, you know, if you're in New Orleans or people love jazz, but how many jazz hit records are there? Not
exactly.
many. So to me, that was probably the most challenging to make.
That's interesting because I'm in college and I'm in a music class right now, and my professor always talks about how jazz is probably out of, like, aside from classical music, jazz is probably the hardest style to make with a band and all that kind of stuff. So I thought that's actually very interesting that you say that.
Yeah.
I don't think your professor ever played in a prog rock band.
What's that?
I don't think his professor ever played in a prog rock band.
Well, you never know.
Yeah, exactly. You never know.
So something else I think that's really cool here, I'm reading in your bio, it says you're doing something special pretty much every week of the month. The first Tuesday of every month, you're releasing a new song. The following week, a new music video. The following week, a funny video. And the following week, a whiteboard video. I don't even know what the heck that is. Just describe this, because this is a really awesome fan interaction thing you're doing.
When I kind of looked at how I wanted to position my brand or my message, one of the things I really wanted to do was constantly reach out to fans. I looked at my musical experience over the years, and what do most bands do? They make a CD, they release one every 2 to 3 years. Most bands might produce 2 or 3 CDs, but at the most 5 or 6, and then they kind of break up or you never hear from them again. What I decided is not only do I want to do this forever, I decided I want to always interact with the fans. I don't want them to forget about me. And the initial thought was, hey, I'm going to release a new song every month. And then I was like, you know what? It'll be hard, but let me do a new video every month too. And then I thought about it and said, you know, I want to do something every week. And that's kind of how it evolved. And then I got into the problem of I wrote a fiction fantasy book, and it's based on each song. And I said, hey, I want to release a chapter each month. And I've started catching up because I just started that like a month ago. And now I'm kind of looking at it as, well, I can't have 5 things every month. So I might end up dropping the funny video of the month and just putting the book chapter in there because I don't want to overwhelm people. I don't want to be releasing 10 things every month and then they kind of get sick of me too. So I think once a week I think is a great thing. Over that, I think I'm going to kind of just be overwhelming for them.
All right, you're listening to the Dace Band Show on MegaPowersRadio.com. If you're just tuning in, we have special guest Sarantos, internet-famed musician, coming up with a new album soon. Let's start talking a little bit about this album. So what's the name of it?
The name is Not Where I Want to Be, which I thought would be a great first CD title, and obviously it was the first song released in January.
And so this album is being released periodically. It's not being released all at once. You're releasing the one song a month.
Yeah, correct. So I started in January, the first Tuesday of every month, releasing a new song, and the 11th song is coming out the first Tuesday of November, and then the entire CD is being released November 18th. That's when, again, all the new masters and mixes of the 11 songs will be available on a CD.
And on a physical CD, for us old-fashioned folks who still
correct.
Use those things.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, I mean, they obviously most of the distribution will probably be digital, but yeah, the physical CD will be available too.
That's fantastic. What are you going to be doing specifically to be promoting this? Are you looking to make any kind of promotional tours, special appearances? Are you just going to be hitting the radio shows like you are now? What is your big plan for getting the word of this album out there?
What I've tried to do is just the reason I started 6 months before a single ever came out is I was trying to build the buzz, and I think I've also done that this year each month as a new single comes out. But what I've tried to do is I would love to go on tour. Unfortunately, I've kind of realized that it's really hard when the musicians are not vested in my music. You know, they're work for hires. I have to pay them to play at a gig or and I also have to pay them to rehearse. And it's been really hard to find people that consistently want to rehearse as well as do gigs. And unfortunately, I've had to say no to some gigs. So that's definitely in the cards, and I would love to say that, hey, I'm performing at this venue and that venue and opening for some band and touring. But right now, as of right now, I can't do that. So I've tried to just promote things with social media, with radio interviews. But if the need is there, obviously I would love nothing more than to tour because I think it'd be great.
You mentioned earlier your musical influences, and one thing that I thought was really cool is you mentioned the name Michael Jackson. Now, Michael Jackson, nothing against his singing. He is a good singer, but what he's specifically known for is his moves on stage and as a performer. Are you planning on incorporating some kind of special show into your performance, or do you have a big plan for that too, or is that something you haven't really processed too many thoughts into? What would be your plans for your actual show when you have one going?
I'd like to consider myself a creative person. I have a lot of really cool ideas about shows because when I've obviously been to concerts and I keep reading stuff and watching stuff online and trying to learn from everyone who's ever put on a show, but I definitely have a lot of cool ideas. My problem is that I think very big, and even though that's probably my biggest problem is I can't do most of what I want to do because when you don't have a label, when you don't have cash flow, how are you going to raise money for charity when you're barely not even covering your expenses of all the music and the videos and everything you're making? So I definitely can't wait to make that a reality, but I can't do it yet.
Oh, man. Well, hopefully this new album is going to help get you launched up to there. I mean, it seems like you've already got a following behind you. This new album is a big first step, getting that first solo one, and you seem like you have this excellent plan of keeping producing this new content. So the website where everyone can find all this stuff at is, and I apologize if I'm pronouncing this wrong, melogia.com. Is that how it's supposed to go?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, it's www.melogia.com. And obviously they can also just search my name, Sarantos, if they Google it or look it up on Facebook, Twitter, it pops up #1.
That's fantastic, man. Join the 950K Twitter followers strong. That's a fantastic number. Sarantos, it's been a very fun chat. I have your songs uploaded here. You mind if I play one of them as a little bit break between the interview and the rest of our show here?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, feel free.
All right, so we're going to pop that track on in a second. Is there anything else you would like to say out to the listeners out there before we depart?
I just want to thank you guys again for having me on the show, and I want to thank all the listeners for listening. And I love it when they interact with me. So I don't have a marketing team. I do all my own social media. Any comment they post on YouTube, I'll post back. Any Facebook, any email. I definitely encourage them to interact with me because that makes it all worthwhile.
That's fantastic. All right, we've just had Sarantos here on the show. We appreciate you coming on the show and telling us about your story, getting this new album out here. Fantastic things you're doing with the consistent posting, the donation to charity. It sounds like a musician you should be supporting. We're going to take a listen to his track. It's called I Love to Love You Too. It's off of his upcoming album, Not Where I Want to Be. Once again, you can purchase that on November 18th in full on Melogia.com. Sarantos, we're going to finish this up now. Thank you once again. Have a good night, man.
You too, guys. Have a great night.
And we're going to start listening to I Love to Love You Too. Here it is.